Welcome to Suri Cheating Story, where we share true stories of betrayal in love. Our channel brings heartfelt, real-life experiences from those who have endured the pain of infidelity. Whether you're facing challenges in your own relationship or seeking to better understand the complexities of love and trust, Suri Cheating Story is the place for you. Subscribe now to explore the emotional depths in the path to healing with us. Daniel sat on the cracked sidewalk, his eyes fixed on the school gate. The sound of children's laughter echoed in the distance, but it did nothing to alleviate the deep ache in his chest. His hands gripped the edges of his coat, trying to ward off the biting chill in the air. His thoughts, however, were much colder. He could hear the whispering voices of passers-by, judging him without a second thought. The man sitting on the curb, the beggar, the failure. Those were the labels he wore without ever asking for them. He glanced at his watch. Almost time. His daughter Lily would be coming out any minute now. He needed to push through, keep going, because for her he would do anything. But God, how he hated this feeling. The feeling of being invisible, of existing in a world that moved forward without even noticing him. If only they knew how hard I'm trying, he thought bitterly. They wouldn't judge me so harshly. But what did it matter? Everyone had their own battles, their own struggles. His were just invisible. The stigma of being unemployed, a father without a stable home for his daughter. It was too much to carry alone. A voice interrupted his train of thought. "Dad!" Lily's excited shout brought him back to the present, and he couldn't help but smile as she ran toward him, her bright eyes sparkling with energy. She was his light in the darkness, and for her he would fight until his last breath. "Dad, you can't imagine what happened today. I learned so much, and the teacher even said I was really smart," Lily exclaimed, not pausing for breath, her words rushing out in a whirlwind of enthusiasm. Daniel stood up quickly, his heart swelling with pride. She didn't know the weight he carried, and he was determined to shield her from it as much as he could. "Tell me everything, sweetheart. But let's walk. We can't miss lunch," he said, smiling down at her as he took her backpack from her shoulder. Together they began walking down the street, a picture of simplicity and love. As Lily babbled on, recounting the events of her day, Daniel couldn't help but feel a small warmth in his chest, a brief respite from the cold weight of their reality. Their routine was simple. Lily went to school, Daniel tried to find odd jobs, and then they met here, on this street, waiting for the next chapter in their lives to unfold. It wasn't glamorous, but it was all they had. As they neared Michael's restaurant, Daniel's thoughts shifted, and the weight of their struggle felt a little lighter. Michael had been a kind soul in a sea of indifference. The restaurant had been a place of solace for them, a quiet corner where they could forget about their troubles for a few hours and simply enjoy a warm meal. It was their sanctuary, even if it was just for a moment. Michael, a large man with a serious expression that rarely softened, was the type of person who kept his heart hidden behind a stern face. But to those who knew him, it was clear that he had a heart as vast as the ocean. And Daniel and Lily had seen firsthand how far that heart could reach. The small alley next to Michael's restaurant was always bustling with a different kind of energy, a mix of anticipation and hunger from the homeless that gathered there every day. And today, as usual, they were greeted by familiar faces. "Hey, Daniel, Lily, how are you two today?" Michael's voice rang out as he approached, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I just filled up the pots again. You're right on time." Daniel smiled, gratitude heavy in his voice. "You don't know how much this means to us, Michael. I honestly don't know what we'd do without you." Michael waved off his thanks with a casual flick of his hand. "It's nothing, Daniel. You don't need to thank me every time. It should be the duty of every place, but not everyone feels that way." He chuckled softly as he filled a container with food. "Anyway, today I have something special. I hope you like it." "Thank you, Michael. You've been a lifeline for us," Daniel said sincerely, taking the filled container. Lily's voice, full of excitement, broke through again. "Wow, Dad, this looks amazing. I love it when Michael cooks." The warmth of the meal filled Daniel's chest, and for a fleeting moment, he allowed himself to feel a small glimmer of peace. They sat down together in the alley, the delicious aroma of the food lifting their spirits as they shared a meal. It wasn't much, but it was enough for now. As they finished eating, Michael came over, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced by something else, a quiet weariness that Daniel immediately noticed. "Michael, you okay?" Daniel asked. sensing something was off. "You look different today." Michael hesitated, his brow furrowing as he looked around at the empty street, the weight of his situation clearly visible in his eyes. "Things aren't going well, Daniel. The restaurant's been losing customers for months now. Debts are piling up, and I don't know how much longer I can keep this place open. I might have to sell." His voice wavered with the uncertainty of a man who had tried everything he could and had nothing left to offer. Daniel sat back, absorbing his friend's words. The restaurant wasn't just a business to Michael. It was a lifeline for so many people. It was a place of refuge, not just for him, but for countless others who had nowhere else to turn. "Is there any way I can help?" Daniel asked, his mind racing. "We can't let this place close." "Not like this." Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've tried everything, Daniel. Discounts, promotions, you name it. But nothing seems to work. People aren't spending like they used to, and it's getting harder to keep things afloat." Daniel leaned forward, his voice filled with determination. "There's always a way. Maybe there's something we haven't tried yet." Michael looked at him, a small glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I appreciate it, Daniel, but I don't know what else we can do." The weight of Michael's words hung heavy in the air, suffocating the conversation between them. Daniel sat there, his mind whirring with possibilities. His heart clenched at the thought of Michael losing everything, of the restaurant shutting down. It wasn't just a business. It was a symbol of hope for so many. The idea of it disappearing was unbearable. "Michael, I understand your frustration," Daniel said slowly, his voice determined but tinged with an undercurrent of disbelief. "But I won't let this happen. I won't stand by and watch you lose everything. Not when we still have a chance." Michael shook his head, a weary sigh escaping his lips. "I don't know how much more I can give, Daniel. The bills are stacking up. The customers aren't coming back. I fought for this place, and it's slipping through my fingers." Daniel looked at him, fire igniting within him. This wasn't the time to give up. "We have one thing that many others don't have. People who care. Michael, we can turn this around. We have to. There's got to be a way." Michael stared at him, his gaze conflicted. "And what do you think we can do? You're already struggling with your own life, Daniel. How can you help me save my restaurant?" Daniel stood up, his fists clenched in resolve. He wasn't going to let Michael sink into despair. "I have experience in advertising. I know how to get people's attention. I know what works, what doesn't. What if we could make the restaurant stand out? What if we could create something so unique that people would be drawn to it, even if just for a visit?" Michael raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "I don't have all the answers yet, but I'll figure something out. We can't just sit around and wait for things to improve. We need to show the community that this place is more than just a restaurant. It's a lifeline. It's a place where people can come and be seen, heard, and fed. I know I can get the word out. Let me do that. I promise I'll do everything I can to help save this place." Michael's face softened, a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "I don't know what to say, Daniel. You're already carrying your own burden. But if you're willing to try, I'll take any help you can give. It's just, I don't know if anything can work anymore." "We'll make it work," Daniel said firmly. "You just have to trust me. We can't lose this place. Not now. Not when it means so much to so many people. I won't let it go down without a fight." Michael nodded slowly, his eyes tired but filled with a flicker of hope. "All right, Daniel. We're in this together, but don't let me down." Daniel's heart swelled with a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about saving a restaurant. It was about saving the spirit of a community. This place had become a sanctuary for people like him, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Daniel threw himself into his plan with everything he had. He brainstormed, researched, and strategized until his mind felt like it was on fire. His experience in advertising became his greatest weapon. He knew how to draw people in, how to spark curiosity, how to make something irresistible. But this wasn't just about advertising. It was about something deeper. It was about creating a feeling, a sense of belonging, a place where people could find hope when they had none. Daniel knew the restaurant had to be more than just a place to eat. It had to be an experience, something that stood out and resonated with people. He sat at a small table, his phone in hand, furiously typing out a message. Michael, I've got it. We can run a promotion, a challenge for the customers. They order a random dish, and before they taste it, they have to guess what it is. If they guess it right, the meal's free. It's fun, interactive, and it'll make people curious. We need to offer something different, something that'll make them want to come back. He hit send and sat back, his heart racing. This could work. This had to work. A few hours later, Michael called him. I like the idea, Daniel. It's risky, but I'm willing to give it a try. Let's do it. But you have to help me set it up. I don't know the first thing about advertising or making this thing work. Daniel grinned. Don't worry, Michael. I've got you covered. Let's make this place shine. The day of the promotion arrived and Daniel's nerves were on edge. He had put everything into this. He had designed flyers, posted on social media, and made sure the restaurant was ready for whatever came next. The chalkboard sign outside the restaurant now read, "Guess the dish, win the meal," in bold, eye-catching letters. People stopped and stared. A few skeptics walked past, but Daniel could see the curiosity sparking in their eyes. A few customers trickled in, cautiously eyeing the sign as they entered. As the first customer sat down, Daniel held his breath. This was the moment that could make or break everything. The clock was ticking. If this didn't work, Michael's restaurant would close for good. The customer, a middle-aged man with a tired face, looked at the menu with a skeptical frown. All right, I'll play. Bring me the random dish. Daniel's pulse quickened as the kitchen staff prepared the dish. The customer seemed to be enjoying the novelty of the challenge, and that was a good sign. Finally, the dish arrived. The man took one look at it, then stared back at Daniel, his eyes filled with amusement. What is this? A surprise? Daniel nodded. Take a guess. If you get it right, it's free. The man stared at the dish, thinking hard. Is it beef Wellington? Daniel's heart skipped a beat. Correct. The man's eyes widened. No way! This is incredible. I can't believe I got it right. Daniel smiled, his mind buzzing with excitement. Well, enjoy your meal. It's on the house. As the customer took his first bite, Daniel looked over at Michael, who was standing behind the counter, watching. Their eyes met, and in that moment, they shared an unspoken understanding. It wasn't just about the food. It was about the experience. They were creating something special, something that would bring people back. By the end of the day, the restaurant had been buzzing with energy. People were talking, laughing, and participating in the challenge. Word had spread quickly, and soon the small, struggling restaurant was filled with customers eager to try their luck. Daniel couldn't stop smiling as he watched people interact with the challenge. He knew this was just the beginning. There was still so much to do, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a spark of hope. The next few days saw the same excitement. The restaurant's fortunes were beginning to turn. Michael had a smile on his face again, and Lily was beginning to see her father's eyes light up with possibilities. But this wasn't just about the restaurant's survival. It was about rebuilding their lives, one step at a time. And in that moment, Daniel realized something that had eluded him for so long. Hope wasn't something that just came. It was something you had to create. As the days passed, the restaurant's atmosphere continued to shift. The place that had once been on the brink of collapse was now filled with the vibrant hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware. The Guess the Dish promotion was working wonders. People were drawn in by the unique experience, the thrill of guessing the meal and the possibility of winning a free dish. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt like they were moving in the right direction. But just as things seemed to be getting better, a new challenge emerged, one that neither Daniel nor Michael had anticipated. It started with the phone call. Daniel was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for the day's special when his phone rang. He wiped his hands on his apron and picked it up, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. Hello, Daniel, a voice on the other end said, sharp and businesslike. This is Marie Thompson, the owner of the building where Michael's restaurant is located. Daniel's stomach twisted. The voice sounded cold, like someone used to dealing with problems rather than people. Yes, Marie, Daniel replied, trying to keep his voice steady. What's going on? I've received complaints, Marie continued, from the neighboring businesses. They're saying there's too much noise coming from your restaurant, especially with the live music events you've started. I need you to address this immediately. If this continues, I'll have no choice but to terminate your lease. Daniel's heart dropped. This was the last thing they needed. The live music had been a huge hit, but if the landlord was threatening to shut them down because of it, everything they had worked for could come crashing down. But the customers love it, Daniel protested, his voice desperate. It's the reason we're getting more business. It's bringing people in. Marie's tone remained unmoved. I don't care if the customers love it. You're disturbing the peace of the other tenants. This can't continue. Daniel's mind raced. He glanced over at Michael, who was busy wiping down the counters, and immediately knew he had to figure out a solution. He couldn't let the restaurant fall apart now, not when they were so close. He spoke quickly, trying to find a compromise. Please, Marie, give us a chance. We'll adjust. We can limit the music to certain hours, maybe scale it back a bit. Just don't pull the lease. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment Daniel thought Marie might hang up on him, but then she sighed as though she was weighing her options. Fine, she said reluctantly, but you'll need to stick to your word. If there are any more complaints, you're out. Daniel let out a sigh of relief, though it was mixed with anxiety. He couldn't afford to let this slip through their fingers. Thank you, Marie, he said, his voice filled with gratitude, though his mind was already racing with how to handle this new obstacle. As he hung up, he turned to Michael, who was already looking at him with concern. What happened? Michael asked, his brow furrowed. Daniel took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. The landlord's threatening to kick us out. She says the noise from the music is bothering the other tenants. If we don't fix it, we're out of a place to operate. Michael's face darkened, and for a moment, the weight of their situation seemed to settle back into the room like a suffocating fog. So what now? He asked quietly. We have to scale back the music, Daniel said, though it pained him to admit it. But we're not giving up on this. We'll find a way to make it work. We have to. The next few days felt like a blur. Daniel and Michael were focused on finding a balance that would satisfy both the landlord's demands and their growing customer base. The idea of scaling back the live music was heartbreaking, but Daniel knew they had no choice. If they wanted to keep the restaurant running, they had to adapt. Michael, ever the problem solver, took the lead in managing the operational side of things. He adjusted the hours of the music, cutting back on the number of live performances, and ensuring that the volume stayed within the acceptable limits. Daniel, on the other hand, worked tirelessly on promoting the restaurant in other ways. He started using social media to advertise the restaurant's unique concept, where diners could experience both great food and engaging challenges, without relying solely on the music. Daniel's advertising skills came in handy as he devised new ways to keep the energy high in the restaurant. He began posting daily specials, highlighting the Guess the Dish challenge in creative ways, and offering occasional discounts for customers who returned and participated in multiple challenges. He also took to the local community boards, hanging flyers, and reaching out to influencers to help spread the word about the restaurant's revamped experience. Despite the challenge of cutting back on the music, the strategy was beginning to pay off. Slowly, new faces started walking through the door. Customers who had previously come for the music now returned for the atmosphere, the food, and the excitement of the guessing game. The energy in the restaurant felt different, not as boisterous as before, but still vibrant, still alive. Michael noticed the difference too. Though his restaurant wasn't back to its previous glory yet, the growth was undeniable. They were making small strides every day, but it wasn't just the numbers that kept him hopeful. It was the sense of community, of people coming together and sharing experiences. They weren't just customers. They were part of something larger, a group united by the spirit of resilience and the pursuit of something better. However, just as they were beginning to feel a sense of stability, a new problem reared its ugly head. The staff, especially the younger workers who were more accustomed to the traditional restaurant atmosphere, began to grumble. They didn't fully understand the changes, and some of them resented the lack of live music. The once lively kitchen now had a sense of unease, with employees whispering in corners, their enthusiasm dampened by the restrictions on the music and the increasing pressure of keeping up with the daily demands. One evening, Daniel overheard a conversation between two of the waitstaff in the back. "I don't get it," one of them said. "Why do we have to change everything? The music was what made this place special." Daniel knew the concerns were valid. The music had been a central part of the restaurant's identity, and to strip that away felt like they were losing part of what made them unique. But he also knew that they couldn't afford to lose the momentum they had started building. He couldn't let the weight of uncertainty drag them back into the pit of despair. The next day, Daniel called a meeting with the staff. He knew he had to address their concerns head-on and reassure them that the changes were temporary, that the restaurant's soul hadn't been taken away, it had simply been reimagined. "Look, I get it," Daniel started, standing in front of the staff, his voice calm but firm. "The music was a huge part of what made this place special. But we have to adapt. We have to find new ways to bring people in and keep the restaurant alive. We're all in this together, and I need everyone's help to make this work. The restaurant isn't just about the food or the music. It's about the people we serve. It's about creating an experience they won't forget." He looked around at the faces of the staff, seeing both skepticism and hope. "I'm asking you all to stick with me. This change isn't easy, but I promise you it's only temporary. We'll find a way to bring the music back in full force. But for now, let's focus on what we can control: our service, our food, and our creativity. I believe in this restaurant, and I believe in all of you." The room was quiet for a moment, the weight of his words settling in. Then, one by one, the staff nodded in agreement. It wasn't going to be easy, but they were in this together. The road ahead was uncertain, but they knew that they had each other to rely on. The days following Daniel's speech to the staff felt like a turning point. The mood in the restaurant shifted, subtly but undeniably. There was still tension in the air, but it wasn't the suffocating kind they had been dealing with before. There was an undercurrent of resolve, a sense of purpose that had been missing. Daniel could feel it. The staff was on edge, yes, but they were moving forward, pulling together in ways that made him believe they could survive anything. Daniel and Michael worked harder than ever. The restaurant had become more than just a place of business. It was a battleground for survival. Every plate of food, every customer who walked through the door, every interaction counted. They had no room for mistakes anymore. Daniel's advertising campaign took on a new life. He kept the Guess the Dish challenge fresh by introducing seasonal themes, and he created social media posts that highlighted the unique experience each customer could have. Slowly, word started to spread. People began to come in, curious at first, but eventually loyal. They didn't just come for the game. They came for the sense of community, for the feeling of being part of something bigger than just a restaurant. And then, just when Daniel began to feel like they were turning a corner, the universe threw them another curveball. It started with the weather. A rare, powerful storm hit the city, closing down streets and shutting off power for several hours. The restaurant lost its entire dinner rush, and the next day's forecast wasn't much better. Daniel stood by the window, watching the rain pour down in sheets, and for a moment, the weight of everything seemed to crash in on him. The restaurant was teetering on the edge of survival, and now this. He closed his eyes, trying to steady his thoughts. "Daniel!" Michael's voice broke through the silence, and Daniel turned to see him standing in the doorway, looking worn but determined. "We can't control the weather. We can't control the things that are beyond our reach, but we can control how we react. We've come this far, haven't we?" Daniel met his gaze, feeling a flicker of hope amid the storm. "We have," he said, swallowing the lump in his throat. "We've come this far." Michael stepped forward, laying a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's keep going. We'll make it through this, just like we've made it through everything else." The next few days were a blur of frantic energy. The storm had cleared, but the damage was done. Customers stayed away, and the kitchen felt quieter, the usual hum of activity stifled by the financial strain. Still, Daniel held on to Michael's words. They couldn't control everything, but they could control how they reacted. It was time to adapt again. In the midst of the financial strain, Daniel found a new idea that might just work. He introduced a pay-what-you-can night for the community, a night where customers could pay whatever they could afford for their meals. The idea was bold, even risky, but Daniel knew it was what the restaurant needed. They had to give back to the people who had supported them, even when they had nothing left. To his surprise, the response was overwhelming. People came in, grateful for the opportunity to contribute in whatever way they could. Some paid more than the meal was worth, others less, but the community spirit was undeniable. The restaurant became a symbol of solidarity, a place where people didn't just come to eat, they came to help. That night, as Daniel watched the customers interact, he felt something shift in the air. It wasn't just about the food anymore. It was about the connections, the shared experiences. The restaurant had become a lifeline, not just for him and Michael, but for the community. And in that moment, Daniel knew that they weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The success of the Pay What You Can night was nothing short of miraculous. The restaurant buzzed with a new energy that had been absent for so long. The air felt warmer, friendlier, as if the very essence of the place had shifted. Customers weren't just there to eat, they were there to be part of something important, something real. Daniel could see it in the faces of the people who walked through the door. It wasn't about the game or the novelty anymore. It was about the connection they felt to the restaurant, to the mission it represented. The patrons saw this place not just as a restaurant, but as a community hub, something that could be relied on when everything else seemed uncertain. Michael, too, noticed the difference. His once gloomy, disheartened expression had begun to soften. He still wore the weight of the restaurant's struggles on his shoulders, but it wasn't as heavy now. Every customer who walked in, every kind word exchanged, every plate served seemed to lift that burden a little more. As the days passed, the Pay What You Can night became a regular event, and Daniel, along with Michael, saw their efforts pay off in ways they hadn't imagined. The restaurant's reputation began to spread, not just for the unique dining experience, but for the heart it put into everything. People were talking about it, sharing it on social media, recommending it to friends, and even bringing in those who could barely afford to eat out. In the midst of all this, Daniel found himself reflecting on what they had built. This wasn't just about saving a restaurant. It was about creating something lasting, something that stood for more than just food. It was a place where people could come together, share a meal, and find solace in each other's company. It was a place where everyone, no matter their situation, was welcome. But Daniel knew that this wasn't the end. They had come so far, and now they had to keep moving forward. There would be more obstacles, more challenges. But they had learned something powerful, the power of community, of people coming together in times of need. And that, Daniel realized, was worth fighting for. Weeks passed, and the restaurant's transformation continued to unfold. The Pay What You Can night became a staple, drawing in a steady stream of customers who wanted not only a meal, but a chance to give back. The sense of community that had formed around the restaurant grew stronger every day. Daniel could feel it in the air. Something had shifted. They had become more than just a place to eat. They had become a symbol of resilience, of what could be achieved when people came together. Michael walked through the kitchen one evening, wiping his brow and looking at Daniel with a grin that had not been there before. "You know," he said, a laugh escaping him, "I never thought this would work, but somehow we've made it." Daniel nodded, feeling a quiet pride fill him. The pressure had been unbearable at times, but now, as he watched the restaurant buzz with life, he knew it had all been worth it. "I told you," Daniel said with a wink. "I never stopped believing." They had come so far. The restaurant was no longer in danger of closing. The bills were paid. The debt was shrinking, and the staff, who had once doubted the changes, were now working with a newfound sense of purpose. The challenge of adjusting to the new environment had been tough, but the result was a stronger, more united team. One night, after the dinner rush had slowed down, Daniel and Michael stood together outside the restaurant, looking out at the busy street. The neon sign above the door flickered warmly in the evening air, and the sound of laughter and conversation spilled out from the restaurant. "You know," Michael said quietly, his voice thoughtful, "I never thought I'd see this place come back from the edge. It's like we've built something that matters." Daniel turned to him, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Yeah, we did, and we're not done yet. This is just the beginning." In that moment, Daniel realized something profound. This wasn't just about saving a business. It was about rediscovering the power of human connection, the strength of a community that refuses to let go of hope. The restaurant had become a lifeline for so many, but in a way it had also become a lifeline for him. It had given him a purpose, a reason to keep fighting, a place where he could rebuild not just a business, but his own belief in what was possible. As the days turned into months, the restaurant continued to thrive, and so did the bonds it had helped create. The hard work, sleepless nights, the moments of doubt, all of it had led to this. The restaurant was alive, the community was thriving, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel and Michael both felt like they had truly found their place. And that place, Daniel realized with a quiet sense of peace, was where they were meant to be. As months passed, the restaurant continued to flourish, becoming a beloved spot for locals who valued not just the food, but the heart behind it. Daniel and Michael had built something real, something enduring. The restaurant was no longer just a business. It was a beacon of hope, a place where community thrived and people supported one another. Daniel looked at Lily, smiling as she played with the other children in the restaurant's cozy corner. He felt a warmth settle in his chest. They had made it. Not only had they saved the restaurant, but they had found something even more precious, a family and a future. If you find this story interesting and want to see more touching, tense, but meaningful situations, don't forget to subscribe to our channel today. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Share this story with your friends and remember to like the video so we can stay motivated to bring you more great and meaningful content. Thank you for watching and supporting us.